All right, welcome back everyone to J-Face Games. Right now we're going to talk about spark points and powers. So we've had some different ideas for how we're going to manage spark points. In essence, what's your fuel for actually doing your powers or your feats. And at this point in time, I want to shift it up. So previously, there was no number to spark points. In essence, it was going to be a pool of points. When you were doing your character creation, you would end up with whatever you didn't use would end up in your spark points that you could then fuel for powers. And I like this idea, but the problem I have with this idea is that it becomes very difficult to then determine what a power is worth, right? How do you fuel powers? Because if one player only has 5 spark points and another player has 15, how do you figure out what the value is of an actual point itself in terms of what powers there are, etc.? So that was challenging to me. And I started thinking about the game Quest and how they use action points, and they have powers and they have action points, and that game is very streamlined. It's a very smooth, streamlined system. And they just say you have 10 action points. Boom. Like, it's just, that's it. And great concept, great idea. I wanted to do a little something different still, of course. You guys know me. And so I like the idea of having 10, but this is the concept currently for spark points. So let's say you have potential for having up to 10 spark points, okay? But you start with 5. So let's put this down here as potential option for spark and powers. So let's say that you have cap of 10 spark points, okay? 5 to start combat with, all right? So the idea being that you're gonna start combat with 5 of these spark points. And every round, you're gonna gain a spark point, okay? So therefore, you could then figure out, you could have really powerful powers that it costs 7 to use them, but you'd have to wait until possibly the 3rd round of combat to actually pull it off, right? So that's one concept, right? Now that's not with the ability to modify it, okay? So maybe you could use some of your soul points to increase the rate at which you gain spark points. Let's say initially you gain 1 spark point a round, right? Could spend soul points to increase this to 2 spark points a round. So that could be cool, but you'd obviously be like, be a cost benefit. Like you'd not be able to buy another power. You wouldn't be able to get more health because you'd be spending those soul points instead of towards your character in other ways to have a faster rate at gaining spark points. The other thing is you can burn stamina for spark point gain, right? So this goes back into that idea that you have that lowest rank of health with stamina. And so now you could use that to get your spark points, right? So I think this is cool because then say like you have some powers that are just 1 spark point. Well, I'm going to use that power this round. I'm going to gain a spark point next round. So it's a net cost, like I didn't really go down. So those are sort of like your quote unquote at will abilities are the ones that are just like 1 spark point. There might be some that are 0 spark points. There might be some abilities that all of a sudden give you a burst of spark points. You know, so this is the base mechanic. There are infinite ways we can start to tweak this in order to have the player have agency over this so they can change it. Now, here's the other thing I wanted to think of. This is a D10. So spark points would be a D10 that sits on your character sheet, right? And that you're tweaking it and moving it. So I think that's fun. It's a nice visualization. Now, the other thing is we haven't talked about, what do we turn it? Effort. We haven't talked about effort yet, right? Effort being, ooh, I don't want that to be green. Let's make it purple like everything else. Effort being, I want to get those pluses to attack, you know, etc. And for the most part, I think I'm going to get rid of pluses to attack as like proficiencies. In other words, you're not going to be able to just gain pluses to attack through proficiencies. You might get them through powers that you use, or you get them through effort. That's it. Otherwise, it's just a dice leveling up. Like you're going to change that dice level and you're going to roll it. And the reason I don't want to use any pluses is because how tight the window is for success in this game, that a +1 is a big deal, right? And so having a power and using a spark point to get that +1, that's a big deal. Using your turn to aid someone in order to allow them to get a +1, that's a big deal. Using effort because it's burning your stamina or your spark points to do so, that's a big deal, right? So how does effort work? Well, I think that effort is going to come from your stamina. But what I also like is that effort's going to cap of 6 and, sorry if this is, it's going to cap at 6 and a d6 sits on your character sheet to represent this. Okay. Now this is where I think it gets cool, is that starts at 1. At the beginning of your turn, you can either increase your spark point die or your effort die. So now I think you have this interesting decision, and hopefully this is quick and intuitive. I don't want to bog down turns. But hopefully what you do at the beginning of your turn, you've got a d6 and a d10. Your d10 is at 5, your d6 at 1. Do I want to increase my ability to gain pluses on this turn, meaning that my effort level is now 2, so I can burn 2 stamina or spark points in order to get a +2, which is big? Or do I want to increase my spark points so that I can use a bigger power, right? And once again, you can have powers that could do this, like powers that can affect this. A leader might have a power or an ability that you can increase someone's effort die for them, right? So I think that there's a lot of, I think that this is a very basic kind of mechanic for power and how to use powers and how to use these spark points and how to use effort that I think feels good. It's simple. You can figure out the math on it because you've only got a cap of 10 spark points. So now all the powers that we can build for the different trees take that into account. Like is a massive power, one that uses 6 spark points, right? So it takes 1 round to be able to launch into, because you have to wait until second round to gain your 6th spark point, unless you have a feat that allows you to start with 6. But then when you use it, you get drained to 0 spark points. So now you've got to build up, right? So I like this. I think this is a cool concept. Let me know what you guys think. Put your comments down below. This is Powers 3.0 now at this point in time. And don't forget to hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit the like button. All right, guys. See ya.